Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everyone to taking Insta-worthy photos of yourself using a tripod. And we're going to be learning today how to take engaging and beautiful photos just all by yourself using a tripod and your camera or your phone. My name is Paola Mendez, and I am the founder of the Blogger Union. The Blogger Union is a network of blogger communities dedicated to growing our members' brands and incomes through meetups and workshops just like this one. We have physical blogger communities all around the US. I run the one in the South Florida area called the South Florida Bloggers. But we also have communities in other locations like the DC Bloggers, which Carly runs. She's going to be helping us today. We have the Houston Bloggers, New York City Bloggers, Orlando Bloggers, and a ton of other locations. So if you would like to find out more about that, visit thebloggerunion.com. And my personal blog is Coral Gables Love. So if you'd like to follow me at Coral Gables Love on Instagram, I follow everyone back that has followed me during the time of the webinar. Helping us today is Carly Beto from the DC area. She runs the DC Bloggers, as I mentioned before. And if you'd like to follow her on Instagram, her handle is the Carly Chic. Our speaker today is Shelby Jolly. She is a blogger from Kentucky, and she talks about DIY, travel, and affordable fashion. And she will be sharing all her tips of how she takes photos of herself using a tripod. Welcome, Shelly.
Hi, thank you.
How are you tonight?
So good to see everyone. I'm great. I have my ring light set up in my room because it's so dark outside now, which I'm still not used to, but the lighting's terrible in my room. So hopefully this ring light's doing its job.
I know, with the time change, it's getting so dark so early.
I know.
So before we get started, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Shelby. I'm a full-time publicist in DC. And ever since COVID happened back in March, I actually have been back home in Kentucky. And then recently after that, got engaged. I've been wedding planning. That's kind of why I'm here right now. And then, of course, rent is a lot less in Kentucky. So I just kind of have been staying here, holding off until my job goes back in person because we're just working remotely right now. Which also helps me be able to work on my blog a lot more. I feel like I have a lot more time to dedicate to it being at home. And I started my lifestyle blog, I guess, almost 2 years now. It was when I moved to DC. I've lived in DC for about 3 years and then started my blog a year after living there. Just met a few girls that did it and kind of always wanted to, but didn't really know where to get started. And I lived in Georgetown. So I was like, every time I went on a walk, I'm like, oh my God, I want to take a picture of like everything that I'm seeing. So it was just perfect timing.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely beneficial that you can work remotely and you get to go home for a little bit.
Yes. It's in a change, but for the good for now.
Absolutely. So let's start talking about why is it beneficial to know how to take photos, and not only photos, but flattering and beautiful photos of yourself using a tripod?
I would say like the main reason why I got started was once I was back in Kentucky, I didn't have anyone really to help me. Like I have my mom and then my fiance who are very supportive, but they don't necessarily have that photography skill. I used to have a few DC bloggers who I would go around with, and now with being in Kentucky and I also live outside of a city, there's really no one around here to help me. So I just had to learn how to do it myself, or I wasn't probably going to get any photos. But I feel like I like now shooting through the week more because before I felt like I had to coordinate a schedule with someone else and it was hard to try to go through the week because both of you needed to get off work. And then depending on the time of year, it gets dark outside. So you pretty much had to block off your Saturday if you wanted to get any kind of content for the following week. So I would just say there's more flexibility with being able to do it yourself and then a quicker turnaround time for campaigns. I know sometimes people want the content back within a week or two. And if I was trying to coordinate it with someone else, there was no way that I was going to be able to do that on top of like all the ones ahead of that. And then if you are having to hire a photographer, maybe you don't have a friend who has that skill, then you're also saving money by doing it yourself. And then for me, I just kind of have like the satisfaction of knowing that I did it myself. And I feel not as like much pressured, because if I'm not getting the shot that I want and I'm with someone else, I'm not gonna like keep making them take the same photo. I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm sure it's good enough. Like, but if I'm by myself, I can really critique it in the moment. I don't have to worry about feeling rushed necessarily.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I
But
would say those are like the top benefits for me right now.
okay, wonderful. I also feel like I'm at the mercy of my photographer, and if she is busy, or and just getting us to coordinate schedules is much more difficult than figuring out your own schedule by yourself. So that's
Uh-huh.
definitely great, knowing how to take photos of yourself. If you're even if you're not comfortable doing it all the time, you can, in a pinch, it really can save your butt.
Yes, yes,
So,
exactly.
so let's talk about when we're already taking photos of ourselves. Uh, it definitely plans pays off to plan ahead. Can you share us a checklist of things we should make to make sure we are preparing for our tripod photo shoot?
Yes. The main thing for me, I always check the weather, because even if I'm like shooting indoors, for example, like a flat lay or a story, the way that my house is, I don't get a ton of natural lighting except for like a few hours out of the day. And if it's cloudy outside, I hardly get any. So I try to look to see like if I'm going to be shooting indoors, what day is going to be like the sunniest. And then if I'm shooting outdoors, obviously like no rain. Um, and then, I mean, I like shooting outside in cloudy weather, but I mainly look for rain if you're going to be outdoors. And then I always make sure that my camera and my phone are fully charged. I don't know if people in the chat right now have, or they shoot on their camera or their phones, but whichever they're doing, just making sure it's fully charged, because when using a tripod and you have to use the Bluetooth, it drains my battery so quickly. So I've gone out before with my phone on like 40%, being like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. And then I have it connected to my camera for like 10 minutes and it's down to like 10%. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I always try to make sure they're at 100, or at least like bring a charger with you.
That's
'Cause
totally
it
true. And not only
definitely
for
drains
those,
it.
I also take just a backup battery for my camera and a backup brick for my phone, because those get drained so much when you're connecting the
Yes.
camera to your phone. Definitely.
Yeah, I know it's hard to, like, when I was in DC, I didn't have a car, so if I am out and about, it's kinda hard to find a charging option, but right now I do have a car here, so but it, of course, charges a lot slower in the car. And then I always brainstorm my locations ahead of time, so I kind of, like, lay out all my clothes. I used to try them on, and I would, like, take pictures in the mirror of, like, how I want it to look, but that just took way too much time, so now I just kind of lay it out on my bed, and then I'll like pair it with different props, whether it's like a hat or a bag, or if I bring like a plant or a pumpkin, like just whatever, kind of planning it out ahead of time, brainstorming the locations. And then I always save photos like on Instagram. I save like creative poses, because I feel like I do the same thing every time, or when I'm in the moment, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." I feel like I just do the same thing every time. So if I need some creativity while out and about or before, I'll look at those poses that I've saved on my phone just to reference. And then I would say figuring out like if you're just shooting just to be creative and post like your everyday in the life, or if this is for like a brand collaboration and you have a shot list that you need to refer to, just knowing what it is that you have to photograph beforehand, because I know I've gone out before and I normally only take vertical shots, but one time a brand wanted horizontal and I totally forgot. I got back home and they're like, where are the horizontal shots? I'm like, oh dang it, like I don't want to have to put my hair and makeup on again and go back out to do that, so I always make sure to write it down now.
That's a great tip, shotless. And also sometimes we forget to take video. We have to take video vertical and horizontal too. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
great to write down your list of shots that you want. It's a great tip.
yes, exactly.
All right, so check the weather, pack your bag, have a backup battery, get your shot list written out, and pack all your props. That's great in terms of planning because you're going to be out there all by yourself. Okay, now what equipment do you need for a tripod photo shoot?
I actually have it laying right here on my bed, so I'll just show you all. This is the tripod that I use. It's kind of big. I know they make smaller ones, but it expands two different ways. So if you don't need it as tall, and then I'm pretty sure it works with any type. This is a Canon, but I've used it with different cameras and it still connects. You just use this little piece right here and then screw it to the bottom of your camera. There's like that little screw hole. You just screw it in and then pop it on. And this is my camera. I actually got this camera before I even started blogging, and I don't know, it's a Canon Rebel T6. I always have to look when people ask me because it's nothing special. I got it on like a Black Friday sale, and I probably need an upgrade or at least a new lens, but it works for me for now. Then this is the battery. I just pack all of this in a bag, and then I use this to load the photos from my camera to my phone if I want to see what they look like. Or sometimes, like if a brand I know they respond very quickly, I'll even send it to them like kind of in the moment to be like, is this good? Like if I need the approval so that I don't have to go back out again, I'll just send it to them right then. So this is a good tool to have that connects to your phone. And then I can show
That's
you all.
that little tool you're showing is a little connector that you can add your card,
Yes. So
your
you
your memory card.
yeah, you plug this part into your phone and then you just plug your SD card into here and it just loads all of your photos like in your Photos app if you have an iPhone. And it'll just all come up and you can actually even save it directly to your phone to then use. I used to always use my computer and I would have to stick it in the computer, figure out which ones I want, and either like airdrop them to myself or something. But now if you have the storage on your phone, then you can just do it this way.
Okay, great.
And then for the remote, I use the Canon app, and basically you just turn your Bluetooth on your camera and it will say, do you want to connect to your iPhone? And then this is just what the app looks like. It'll say remote live view shooting. So you can actually see what you're looking at when you're out there and your camera's on the other side. But if you don't have a Canon or if your camera company doesn't have an app or if you just use your phone, they also have remotes on Amazon that you can use and they're a lot smaller. So that way they're probably easier to hide also because I always get like the picture angled up and I click on the screen to focus it. And then as soon as it's the timer sound, I like have to throw my phone somewhere or like try to hide it in my back pocket really fast. So
That's great.
the remote probably is smaller and easier to hide.
So
And
there
then
on the chat, our audience is asking, do you know the name of that little connector so that they can look it up?
I want to say it's sold at Apple. I can definitely find the like actual name of it. It's probably called like an SD converter and it's
To
made by
iPhone.
Apple. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure like Best Buy or Apple Store would sell them. Maybe even like phone companies. But if anyone has or needs like the link to it, I can definitely send it afterwards.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah,
Thank
it's a
you.
lifesaver like when out and about if you don't have your computer with you.
Absolutely. I think now most cameras have that Bluetooth feature that you can connect your phone to your camera so that you can even preview what your camera is looking at and you can take the photo from there. But if your camera is a little bit older and it doesn't have that feature, then you would definitely want to buy those remotes that they sell on Amazon. And you can just look for your camera brand and remote, and you'll find different options there that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then just some other like optional. I know I used to use one of those pop-up tents for changing when I was in DC because I didn't have a car and I was like, I'm not just gonna, I didn't want to have to find like a public restroom every time to change. So it's just a tiny little tent that pops up and you can stand up in it and change. But right now, where my mom's car has tinted windows, I just use that. And I'm like in a not a populated area, of course. And then the other optional would just be this ring light that I have right here. And I can also send the link for that. It's on Amazon. It was like $40 and it also holds an iPhone. So if you do a lot of like makeup tutorials or something up close, you can just put your phone in there instead of having to hold your phone. It's kind of like a tripod and a ring light all in one. I don't do it for like try on hauls or anything just because I use my mirror, but there are a lot of things that I do where it definitely comes in handy. It's kind of like a
Great.
tripod and ring light all in one. So
We can
that's
share all of
pretty
those
much all the
links
equipment.
in the YouTube webinar replay. So if you guys want to catch all of the links that Shelby's going to be sharing with us, make sure you visit our YouTube channel afterwards. All right. So did you have any other tools that you wanted to share with us, or?
I think that's all the equipment that I bring. I don't change my lens or anything. I have another lens, which is like a zoom lens, but just for what I do specifically, I don't feel like I need the zoom lens. So I just keep the standard one that it came with my camera. But if you have a different type of lens, I guess that'd be the only other equipment.
Oh, okay, perfect. Because people have been asking in the chat what lens you use.
Oh, okay. This one is, look at me, I don't even know. It's a 1855 millimeter, and it just came with it. So
okay,
I need to probably learn how. I mean, I definitely know other people that have recommendations, but this one for me now just works. Haven't upgraded.
Okay, perfect. I think that lens might be nice and versatile for when you're using it with the tripod. So the 18 to 55 millimeter, you said?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, I know it's a little bit different when you're taking photos with someone who's a friend or a photographer taking pictures of you versus you going out there and taking pictures of yourself with a tripod. Can you give us a little bit of tips of what we can expect when we're going out there on our own?
Yes. I would say like in the moment, it definitely takes a lot longer. So plan enough time. Because if you have a friend, they're helping you know if the lighting's good or no, like, why don't you come over to this side and we'll try that. But if you're by yourself, you have to set up, make sure you get the right angle, take like a test shot, come back, look at it, adjust it, maybe move the tripod closer or further away. And then if the lighting's bad, there's just a lot of like trial and error. Whereas if you're with a friend, they're kind of like coaching you through it and telling you, oh, let's try this, or they're able to get the different angles. Cause I know a lot of times too with the tripod, a lot of the angles are restricting because where I'm so tall as well, I make the tripod as tall as it goes. And sometimes I feel like it's not the right angle that I want, but I can't really put on anything because the legs are so far apart, it would be wobbly.
Right.
And if it's like a bag and you want an up close, it might be hard to like do an up close with the tripod because where if someone else was like able to hold the camera and be closer. So I would say it's a little frustrating sometimes in the moment if you're not doing like a full body photo and you need different angles. It's kind of hard to get that, or it takes a lot longer. The other day I gave myself like, I don't know, 2 hours. And of course that was like travel time too. And I'd packed, I think, 4 outfits, and that was not enough time. Because I had to like go out and then come back to the car, and the sun started setting, and I was like, oh, dang it. And I still had like one outfit I hadn't shot, and so I didn't get to do it. But
because
if I was with someone, I don't think it would have taken over 2 hours. So
exactly, because with someone else, you get their feedback right away on the spot versus when you're by yourself, you got to take the picture and take a look-see and oh, that didn't work and try again. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Or sometimes I'll think that it's focused and it's not.
Oh,
Sometimes the tripod doesn't focus it, whereas if it was someone else and they knew how to use the camera, then they could obviously focus it.
definitely.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
so now let's talk about actually taking beautiful photographs. So, there are a few things, concepts that we should keep in mind so that the photos that we take are beautiful when we're using the tripod. So let's start talking about lighting. Lighting is key in photographer, whether you're using a tripod or not. Can you
Mhm.
share some tips and tricks when it comes to lighting and getting Insta-worthy photos?
Yes. I always try to face the sun. So if I'm inside, I always try to get as close as I can to a window. If I'm recording stories, even, I just got this ring light, which also kind of like plays as more sunlight, essentially. Um, and I feel like if I'm outside, I do try to shoot in the shade, like instead of in the direct sunlight, because I actually my last photo that I posted, it was so sunny that day and there was no clouds at all. And this house that I wanted to take a picture in front of, it I knew that there was never probably gonna be shade there until the sunset. So I just went for it and it didn't turn out as good as I was wanting, just because of that really harsh sunlight shining right on me. But the time of day can also help with that. So I've just heard from like other photographers from like 12 to 3 is like probably the where the sun is like the harshest. So either try to go like in the mornings or like in the later afternoons to get that sun that you're looking for. Um, so yeah, just always trying to face the sun and then in those times. But I always do like, I don't know, an hour or two before sunset. If I get too close to sunset, I feel because I know a lot of people love the like golden hour photos, but I do it, I feel like even a little before the actual golden hour, but that's just me.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So when it comes, you already told us what time of day you rather shoot. Okay. How about when it comes to posing? Do you have any advice when it comes to posing and using a tripod?
I would say just a lot of movement if you want like those candid shots. So whenever I use my tripod, I do the self timer and I do 10 frames in one shot. So that because that's the maximum amount that my camera will let me, but I know like phones have like the burst and they have all those other features as well. So without if it's good lighting and I know it's not going to be blurry, I try to move as much as I can. So I'll focus it, press it, and just kind of like almost walk towards the camera. That way you're getting some like full body and then some closer up ones and I just kind of like look around, flip my hair, maybe like if I have a bag, I'll play with it. Um but if you do want those kind of like not movement shots, then um, I would just say plan out what type of pose that you're wanting. But me personally, I just like to have movement and I feel like it helps mix up your pose. Um, and then other advice is definitely trying to hide your phone. And if you want to pull up slide 7, I just
You
have
got
some
it.
examples that are like funny of my phone showing in the photos, which I always end up cropping it out, but I definitely have my phone in there, which is not on purpose. These I just thought were like funny examples. So like this picture on the left, my phone is just yeah chilling right there because I try to like throw it out as far as I can without like breaking my phone. The center one, it looks like I'm posing, but I was just looking at my phone and it ended up working. I've ended up posting that one. And then, yeah,
Okay,
the other
let's
one,
see.
which is it's covered by the chat a little bit,
Can
but
you
it
see
was
it
just
there?
like,
Because I moved the chat, but maybe it will
oh,
move it for you guys.
that's okay. It's just peeking in on the side. So, yeah, definitely hide your phone better than me because it's always showing.
Yeah, especially so since you use your phone as your remote, you always take your photos on timer mode so that you
So
have time to throw away your phone.
it's the Canon app and it's Bluetooth, and I just use that as the remote essentially,
But
like
do
my
you
phone.
Do you set so that it counts down or so that it takes the photo immediately?
It counts down, but not very much. It's like it beeps like 3 times and then it just starts snapping. So,
Okay, perfect. Okay. Um, so let's see. So that is taking multiple shots is a great tip. Um, okay, so we already discussed how going out and taking a photo shoot with a tripod by yourself is time consuming. So, how can we make the most of a single photo shoot with a tripod to get lots of content for our feeds and blogs?
um, I try to take a lot of photos in one location if I can. So, there's a place by my house and it's kind of like where I go if I know I need a quick turnaround because the lighting is always great there and I always like how they turn out. And it's just a very like clean background that kind of like matches my aesthetic of my feed. I just don't always like going there because I'm like, oh, I feel like people have seen this so much and it gets boring, but I try to like frame it differently. So if I can knock out like 3 photos or 3 outfits in one location, I definitely try to do that just because it saves me time and I don't have to worry about doing my hair and makeup the next day then. Um, and I always take some type of video. If I'm by myself, it's harder because if you have to prop your phone up on the ground, it's not going to be the best angle. But those like behind the scenes videos that I know a lot of people then can use for content on their stories, or there's the reels now. So I always try to create as much content as I can, whether it's even me just propping my phone up on the ground and doing like the behind the scenes of me walking or just showing the outfit in motion a little more. But if I'm with someone, then I'll have them to try to record a story as well. Um, and then yeah, just knowing like where you can change. And because I mean, I've gone to places before where it was like out on a farm, and I was like, okay, there's literally nowhere for me to change right now, and I had a bag of like 4 outfits, and I'm like kind of in limbo, figuring out what to do. So
That's where that pop-up temp comes
yeah,
into play.
exactly, exactly.
Perfect. So you had a slide where you were showing us one location that you took different angles.
Yes,
Do you want me to share that?
yes, that's fine.
All right,
I think it
let's
was
take a look.
slide
See.
8. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. It's right by my house. It's like literally a mile down the road, and you can see I've framed it very differently, but you can see it's still the same location, but I just spread it out and it kind of flows nicely. But yeah, I just like the clean white background, and it's kind of like a rustic old building, and then the lighting is just always so good there because I don't know what it is. I think there's a building like on the other side, so it's kind of always half sunny, half shaded, no matter what time of day you go there. So that's I just like it.
That's great, having a go-to location. But I love it because all of these three pictures don't really look like the same spot because you really did change the angle.
Yes, yes. But yeah, all these were taken. Every photo in this um, presentation we're taking on my tripod. Like if you looked at my feed last year, I would say 0% were tripod, but if you look this year, probably like 90% are just because of the my current circumstances. So
Okay, perfect. So, can you share how you prepare for a shoot?
yes. So I feel like I had more time during the beginning of like quarantine and everything to be more creative. Now that like my work has picked back up, it's a little harder. But I always prepare just by like trying to think of like how I can be creative with the content, whether it's like showing off an outfit or a product or just like me and my everyday. Some of the content I create is just for fun. So if it's like a creative idea I have or I've seen someone else do it, it's just challenging and something different to do. So in the beginning of quarantine, when I had a lot of time and it was cold outside and, I didn't want to like go out and about in public, I was doing a lot in my house. So I would use like a white sheet and try to pin it up, which I know they make actual things that are stands where you can pin them up, but I don't have that. So I would just be using like clothespins, trying to like clip on the walls where I could, and moving furniture around my room. And I used different props on this like blank wall that I had in my room. At one point, I had all these like magazines on there, and then another time I had records. My mom like randomly found these old records, and I was like, oh, I could use that in a photo, just something different. I think I have a slide on me like trying to hang the sheet, and then also me using the different props like on my wall. So these
Oh,
are, I guess, are examples of all the indoor shots. It's slide 9 and 10, both of
okay.
those.
Let's start with this one.
Okay. And this also shows an example of a video. So I just kind of set my phone up and recorded me trying to set this up, not knowing if it would actually turn out. And then I turned it into like a TikTok video and our reels. So creating more content when you can.
Perfect. So that is the resulting photo of that setup with the sheet. I love that. And then here are the shots that you're talking about with the
I don't think
Well,
it's
it doesn't
showing
look
for
like
us.
we can see it yet.
Oh, you guys can't. Were you able to see the video at all?
No.
I saw that all by myself. Wonderful. Here you go.
I'm like running around the room.
So this is Shelby setting up her sheet with her ring light so that she can take these shots.
I had like little music with it. It probably looks
It's
so
so
weird
basic. It's
with
just
no
a
music,
sheet
but
as your
also
background.
yeah, you can see that she didn't go up very high, so I had to crop a lot in the photo because it was showing the entire window.
And then this is the, can you guys see now?
Yes.
These are the photos that you were talking about with the records. I love that.
Yeah, so all of this is just like a blank wall in my room, and I just tried to create 3 different looks, I guess, with the same just plain wall.
It looks like 3 different locations. That's great. Okay. All right. So is there a difference when you're planning for a photo shoot, when it's something that you came up with, a concept that you came up with, versus when it's a paid campaign or a collaboration?
Yes. So the last 3 photos, actually the ones of me in that same location, none of those were a paid campaign or collab, just because I knew that the focus would be like on the magazines or the records, and a brand probably wouldn't be happy about that. So I just did those for fun. But when it is for a brand, I know there's sometimes like a very strict creative brief that they'll send over. So they might want a certain color scheme or a specific location. And I guess an example that I can think of is when I partnered with Neutrogena last year. It was called the BFF campaign, and they wanted someone like a friend in all of the photos with you. And I think they wanted 3 different photos, and they again had like certain locations. I think we had to take one at like a CVS or a Rite Aid where they sell Neutrogena. But yeah, a friend, and it had to be a different friend each time. So I know also a lot of my friends, like my roommates, were like, I don't want to be in your picture with you. I'm like, okay. So that was a little difficult, just trying to piece all that together. Whereas if it was not a paid campaign, sometimes you have more freedom to do what you want and kind of where you want.
Definitely. And those are all great tips. So I think our last question before we're going to take questions from the audience in the chat. So you guys can start adding your questions to the chat. Do you use any apps to edit your photos that you could share with us?
Yes. So I use Lightroom, which I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with the presets. I used to use Visco Cam, which I still use a lot. It's similar to Lightroom, but rather than you having to purchase a preset, it kind of already has ones made in there for you. And I'll sometimes use both. So I'll use Lightroom to put a preset on. I'm not good with creating my own preset. I use other people's. I'll tone it down a lot. So like obviously the same preset isn't going to look great on every photo depending on if it's indoor or outdoor. So I'll tone it down. But I switch between a couple different presets that I use and then just turn down the brightness, exposure, certain colors. And then I use Visco specifically to sharpen and add grain just because I feel like I like the way it looks better in Visco than in Lightroom, because Lightroom has the sharpening tool and the grain, but it just looks more subtle and like natural, I feel like, in the Visco cam, but maybe that's just me. And then Snapseed is the other app that I feel like I use the most, and I use it to brighten the background. So you can click exactly where you want it to be brighter rather than brightening the entire photo. Because I know sometimes if I brighten the whole photo, then it starts to make me look pale, but I'm like, oh, I want it bright. I just don't want my skin and everything to be bright. So I'll use the Snapseed to brighten just the background, and you can click where you want it to be bright. And also it lets you expand your photos. So I know a lot of times Instagram will crop the photo. Like if you get up too close and then it's going to chop your head off or something in the feed, or it won't get your shoes or something like that. So Snapseed has a way for you to expand your photos, and it has to be a very plain background or else it'll look really wonky, but you can expand and it'll just kind of bring you out if that helps fit into your feed better. So those are the three main ones. I feel like I used to use some others, but I don't have a lot of storage on my phone, so I had to delete a lot of them.
That happens when you take so many photos.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. All those are great apps, and I didn't know that Snapseed did that, expanding your photo. I usually do that using Photoshop with like content aware filling. That's good to know
Okay.
that Snapchat does that.
Yeah, I sadly don't have Photoshop, or else I'd probably use that.
Well, honestly, I use a little bit of everything, because sometimes I like the filters in one app and what another app does, like the sharpening that you like Visco versus Lightroom. So I think our photos bounce from one app to another until we're finally happy with what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. Those are all great recommendations. So I know that when we were talking earlier about tools, someone was asking about if you have a good recommendation for a tripod with a ring light. So
A tripod that has a ring light. I can just show you all mine if I can pull it over here.
okay.
Wow. I don't know if it will actually come because it's in the wall, but this is what it looks like. It has like this piece. This holds your phone. And then there's also a piece down on the bottom, like right here, that is another piece that holds your phone. So this is good for phones, but I don't know. I've not seen a ring light one for a camera, but I'm sure they make them. I just looked on Amazon and found this one, but there are tons, and I just read reviews and went with one that I thought sounded good, and it has held up for about 6 months. So
that's great. Also, when you give us the links for all the tools, we'll just add them to the YouTube description so that people can go check out the specific tools that you use. Thank you. All right, Brittany is asking, how do you take vertical photos with the tripod? I have the same camera, but have only been able to take horizontal photos after screwing my Canon onto that connector piece.
I can show you all that too.
Yay.
Wait, the connecting piece meaning like this, the little screw, I think. Okay. So I always take this piece off first and screw it on there. I have had, maybe your tripod is a little different than mine, because one time whenever I flew home, I think it was last year when I flew home for Christmas, I didn't want to bring this tripod, and my mom had wanted me to take like a family group photo. So she was like, bring your tripod. And I'm like, I'm not flying that. So she had one at school or something that she let me use, and it would not actually flip. So maybe
Oh, so maybe it's a
some do and
specific
some
tripod.
don't, but
Yeah.
mine, like, once I put it on there, um, well, it's hard sitting down. Uh-oh. I'm probably doing it wrong now. Okay, no, there we go. So like this is it normally, and then if you just pull and flip, that's what it does. But maybe your tripod is different and it won't let you.
Also, it might be, you see that little knob at the front of that
Oh, if
piece
that's
that
tightened or
if you
something.
tighten it, it won't let you flip it. So maybe look at that
Yeah,
knob
there's a knob right here.
and loosen it so that it lets you flip it, and then you can tighten it so that it stays and it's not
Wait,
wobbly as you
yes.
take the photo.
I just tightened it and it wouldn't let me do it. So that probably is it. So yeah, just don't have it as tight. But I've even used like a Sony tripod before, and my camera worked on it and it flipped. So I don't know if you have to have, like, if you have a Canon camera, you have to have a Canon tripod, because I think they even kind of have like a one size fits all generic on like Amazon. So
I think so, because that tripod you keep showing us has a big Sony on it, and you have
yeah,
a
no,
Canon.
I just saw that. I have a Canon one and a Sony one.
Okay, perfect.
This one is the Sony one and it works. So
I think it's that little piece with the screw on it that makes
Mhm.
it kind of work for any brand. So thank you. So that was for Brittany. Carly has a general question, and she wants to know, what is your favorite thing about blogging, and what was the favorite campaign that you worked on?
My favorite thing about blogging, I would say just getting to, like, it's a hobby. After I used to play a lot of sports and I stopped doing that and I wanted a new hobby. And I first started, I went on a trip to Italy and I took so many photos and I just wanted a place to be able to share everything. So I made a Wix account, which is just like a free website, and I made this, I guess, travel guide essentially on this Wix account. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that was actually really fun. So then I converted it to a WordPress and started taking it a little more seriously and posting more photos on Instagram. And that's kind of how I got started. But now I just feel like it's part of my everyday life. Like, even if I take like a week off, I'm like, all right, I miss it. Like, got to get back. But yeah, I just enjoy it. And it's a hobby. I like photography, I like fashion and sharing things, and of course talking. So I just feel like it helps me get my creative juices out, while also I've met so many people through this. I moved to DC, I didn't know anyone, and now I've met so many people through it. So
Oh,
yeah,
I love
that's
hearing
great.
those stories.
Yes. And then my favorite campaign, oh, I'm trying to think of like the top one. I did one with a rental car last year, which I thought was really cool because I didn't have a car in DC. And then they gave me a car for a day, and I was like, okay. And I like drove out to a winery. And then my friend Emily, who's also another DC blogger, she had a drone. So we like recorded this really cool video of me with this car, and they loved it. So that was really fun and just something different that I normally wouldn't do, because I feel like a lot of the other stuff I do is a lot of clothes and
Right.
products.
Driving new cars is always fun.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, because I also, where I hadn't drove in so many years, I hadn't drove in like 2 years, not having a car in DC. I was like, this feels so strange.
Okay. Anna is asking, do you typically scout your location and then go back? Or do you just shoot wherever you find?
Both, but I would say I scout out the locations first. Just like if I'm ever out and about and I see something cool, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta come back there like once I'm, ready for my next shoot or whatever. And I have a running list. So in DC, I have a list of like all the places I want to go that I haven't been to. Or if I like see someone else go somewhere and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cute, then I'll go there. But if I'm like, for example, I'm not sure where she's from, but in Georgetown, for example, like in DC, there's so many buildings. So, and I don't necessarily scout all locations there because I know I'm going to find something because it's all so pretty. So I just walk around and whatever looks good and has good lighting, I'll just start trying out.
Nice. So it's actually a little mix of both.
Yes.
Nice. Alice wants to know if you buy all your clothes or do you rent and borrow?
I would say a lot of the clothes like that I post about are collaborations, but I definitely do still buy a lot of clothes. I don't rent. I used to have Rent the Runway subscription last year, which was dangerous because I had a lot of weddings over the summer and there's a Rent the Runway in DC, so it worked out because I don't necessarily always like ordering if you have to like pay for it to rent and then it's not going to fit. So I liked that there was an actual store that you can go and try on. But yeah, I would say most of the clothes I either buy or if it's a brand that I'm working with, then they send me the clothes in exchange for the work.
Nice. Thank you. And then Mary is our final question, and she is asking, what are your top 3 props for fun pictures?
Well, as you can see, this hat wall back here, and I see some other people have them in their rooms too. I don't know if that's considered a prop, but I use it as a prop, whether I'm like holding it or just kind of like sitting in the corner, or if I'm wearing it. I've kind of collected them over the years since blogging, and I don't know, I always like the way that my photos turn out better when I'm wearing them. And I guess sunglasses is more of an accessory than a prop, but I always have sunglasses on. And even my friends that don't blog, they're always like, why are you wearing your sunglasses? Like, show your face. You can't even see your face because you're wearing your sunglasses. And I'm like, I just like the way they look better. And if it's sunny, or it's kind of for me, one less thing I have to worry about, like if my eyes are closed or not. So I'm like, I'm just going to wear the sunglasses. But I don't know. I sometimes take like a plant, or the other day I took a pumpkin somewhere, just depending on like the season. And if it's in the summer, you might find like a pool float, or if it's around the holidays, like a cute little Christmas tree or whatever like that. And then always, well, not always, but most of the time I bring some kind of bag. I just always like to be holding something. Like if I'm just standing there empty handed with no bag or no hat, like nothing to physically touch, then I'm like, I feel awkward. So I always like to have something to hold. It makes me feel more comfortable.
That's a great tip. Thank you. Well, that was our final question. Well, I guess we still have a little bit of time and a couple more questions came in. So let's go through them. Joanne is asking, do you experiment with different camera filters on your 35 millimeter? I'm not sure if she meant lenses. Do you?
Probably lenses. I do not, unfortunately. I should. I put my zoom lens on like just to see what it does, but if you're like standing in your front yard, it's gonna like zoom in on like 4 houses down's like front door, and I'm like, I don't need that zoom, so I don't use it as much. But I definitely want to get a lens that does like portraits better and kind of blurs the background, because I feel like mine doesn't do that. It's a very like crisp shot of everything. It doesn't necessarily always make me pop, whereas I know some lenses kind of blur the background.
Right. So most photographers use the 50 millimeter for lens for getting the blurry background. And then the problem is that it's a fixed lens. So, and it's kind of a tight shot. So you just need to get practice working with it. But my photographer uses the 50 for everything. She has to stand 4 blocks away to get a full body shot.
I need to get one. I just know like sometimes the lenses can be more expensive than the actual camera, which I didn't realize until I started looking for them. And I'm like, all right.
That's
I
true.
don't know if I need that right now. Maybe wait for Christmas.
Well, if your setup works for you, then that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it would be nice to at least learn how to use other ones.
Nicole is asking, do you get distracted by people walking by?
Sometimes. So I live in a very small town. So people are not used to seeing people out walking with their camera or tripod. And I feel like in a city it's a little more normal. No one really like stops to look at you, but here people are like literally staring like, what is that girl doing? But the location that I showed in the PowerPoint, it's on a street and it faces kind of like a field. So I know like no one's really gonna walk by there. So I that's another reason why I like going there. But I never really go to like a busy street corner. It's just I don't know. And there's a college campus by my house, and I in the summer loved going there because it was empty. But now that it's back in school, I don't go there at all. So yeah, I definitely get distracted, and I try to like I don't know, wait until they're done walking by before I like start doing my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And
And some
sometimes
people will ask like, what are you doing? Or like, why are you taking these pictures?
so, and sometimes you just don't want more other people in the shot. So that's also
Yeah.
why I tend to go scouting on locations when early in the morning or during the week when I know most people are working. I can go and take a photo or something like that so that we don't have distracting people. Okay. And then now this is our final question from Carlita. And she's asking, how do you keep such a clean and cohesive feed?
Oh gosh, I feel like I don't. So that's such a compliment. I guess I mean I don't coordinate colors at all, but I just see like in the summertime I feel like my feed's a lot brighter with like the blues, like if I'm at the pool or like just the sky. And then as I get into the fall, it gets a lot warmer with like the trees. I just feel like it gets like a darker feed in the winter just because I don't know, I guess what I'm taking pictures of because I try to relate it to like the seasons. But using that Snapseed, so if I do think a photo background looks really dark, I'll try to brighten it up, just the background in the Snapseed app to try to make it look cleaner, I guess. But I also use, I forget what the app's called. I think it's called Preview. Yeah, it's called Preview, and it lets you plan out all your photos. There's so many different apps that do that, but some of them cost. This one's free, and it will load your Instagram feed currently, and then you can pop in like however many photos you want on top of it and move them around. And I'm like very weird about it. I'll like wait to post a photo if I don't think it looks good. But yeah, I don't know. I used to obsess over it more, and I try not to now because I feel like two people want it to look lifestyle and natural and not, I mean, it depends on like what kind of look you're going for. But I did like an Instagram poll one time on like if people liked a very like clean, perfect feed or if they liked it kind of to be random. And I think they voted the random. So that's when I started not caring as much.
That's awesome. So, well, that was our last question. Thank you so much, Shelby, for joining us tonight and sharing all of how you do all of your tripod photo shoots. I think some people really enjoyed your tips and tricks, especially how to take the vertical shots with your tripod. Some people found new features on their tripod they didn't know they had. So thank you so much for joining us.
I love talking to you all. Thank you so much. Yeah, just be sure to like message me if you have any questions that I didn't get to answer or needing the links to stuff. So
okay, wonderful. We will be sharing this webinar replay on our YouTube channel, and we'll share all of those wonderful links Shelby will be sharing with us. And thank you all of you guys for joining us tonight. We have other webinars in the work, so stay tuned for those. And other than that, have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you, Carly. Bye.
Bye.